Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to 7 things America does really well. Now, this is going to be a fun video. Like typically, there's a lot of videos out there about how maybe America's doing this wrong or that wrong, but I thought for a change, let's focus on something that America does well, or a series of things, which there are plenty, and who else better than Lawrence from Lost in the Pond to do this video? He's a Brit who lives in America. I'm sure he's probably observed quite a few things that he approves of, and I'm sure that I'd probably approve of as well if I lived there. So yeah, this should be a lot of fun. Let's do it.
It feels like you're living the dream while also escaping the feds.
What?
Hello, I'm Lawrence. I'm from Britain and I live in the United States, and anybody that's seen my channel before will know that I absolutely love living here. Now, don't get me wrong, I do have feelings about the things that America doesn't do quite so well, just as I'm aware of Britain's shortcomings.
Absolutely. All countries have their shortcomings. Like ours here, I'd say that public sector workers, civil servants, they're grossly underpaid. That's one of my main criticisms about this country. Doctors, nurses, teachers, grossly underpaid. In America, I'd have to say, I think your tipping culture is out of control. I feel like, I'm sure there's going to be people who, maybe waitresses, waiters who make, a lot of money, but I feel like it shouldn't be the customer who has to ensure that you're paid a proper wage. Hearing that the minimum wage for servers is like $2 or $3 an hour, I just think that's way, way, way unacceptable. But yeah, back to the video.
But I'm an optimist, and amid all of the criticisms that might be thrown at America, I often think it's important to remind myself of the things that America does well.
Absolutely.
I think amid the pandemic of the last 2 years and this sort of political division that's engulfed the country, it can be easy for us to lose sight of those details, those things that have made my stay in the United States an enjoyable one.
Yeah,
so I'm going to outline some of them right here, right now, so that you can share this video from now until the end of time. Here are 7 things that the United States of America does really well. Yes, it's a little bit of a cliche because, everybody loves pizza. Even back in Britain, we like pizza. Just not as much as we do in America. I lived in Britain for 26 years. I've lived in America for 14. And I've probably had 100 times more pizzas since moving.
Is it me or is that pizza a little burnt? It looks, yeah, it is a bit burnt, isn't it?
Here. And on the whole, America does them really well. I'm sure the Italians won't thank me for saying that, and I'll caveat that by saying I do also love Italian pizza. I just love pizza in general. That's sort of a rule, isn't it?
Same.
But America has many different styles, and of course I live in Chicago, so I am living in the place where one of its most famous pizzas was born. And if I'm in the mood and I haven't eaten in 3 days, a Chicago deep dish pizza is amazing. But, and this is the reason that I don't go out onto the streets of Chicago anymore, I actually prefer the Detroit style. I know, because the thing is with Detroit style, it's like Hufflepuff. Everybody thinks they're either Griffin.
The Detroit style's the one where it's cut into squares, isn't it, right? Yeah, that one does look really good.
Or Slytherin. But I'm a contrarian by nature, so I always like to go for the third option. For me, it's not New York style or Chicago, it's Detroit. I promise that not all of my answers are about food, but I felt like I had to include this one.
To be fair, food is the thing America does well, I think. Just the variety of options you've got, just incredible options. If I lived in America, there's a good chance I'd be obese. Definitely, it'd be hard for me to stay slim.
Not many things beat the feeling of waking up on a Sunday morning and making that decision to go to your local diner and have breakfast. For me, there's just a significant amount of warmth that comes with an American diner. It's the early morning chatter, it's the pour of the coffee, it's the omelettes and the hash browns, it's the seating booth, it's all of it. It just makes up for such a great atmosphere. And, we do have, of course, cafeterias and things like that back in Britain, but we don't really have anything that's precisely the same as an American diner, which is sort of a shame because they also remind me of adventure.
I think the cafes that we have here, like the little cafes on the corners of streets here in London and in the whole of the UK, they're kind of similar to American diners, just a lot smaller.
Right. I always think of 2 film characters meeting in secret to plot the overthrow of the villain who's come to annihilate the city. That's why I go to diners. Streets. This might seem like a weird answer, especially since, of course, we have streets in Britain. And to some extent, I miss the streets in Britain. You know, there's character to the winding nature of them, and you can very much get lost just looking for the post office. Here, it feels like you're less likely to do that, and the orderly side of my brain appreciates that.
Yeah, American streets are a lot more like square, like grid type pattern, blocks. I think you call them blocks, whereas ours here, yeah, they're very...
Streets, firstly, of course, are laid out usually in blocks, so you have kind of rectangular streets. This is very much in line with my observations of America's fascination with rectangles. But it's not just that, right? It's the things that are on the street. Those fire hydrants that you see in the movies, it turns out they're real. And the house numbers seem to go on forever. It almost seemed peculiar back in Britain if the house number went into 4 digits. I don't know that I've had an American address that's had fewer than 3. Are there any Americans that live at, you know, number 4 Washington Street? Oh, and streets as well. They're all named after presidents or places in America or types of tree.
Why is it that I've watched a video about this, but I've forgotten? I think is it because the way American postcodes or streets are, they start in the middle and they go outward? Is that why the street numbers can get into the 5 digits? Someone give me an explanation for this, please, in the comments.
And I just love that continuity. I love saying things like, I'll meet you on the corner of Maplewood and Jefferson in 5. And there are always people walking their dogs on these streets. And they're usually super polite and they'll look you in the eye and say, good morning. It's afternoon. I really couldn't have made this list without including entertainment. I mean, obviously that's quite a broad term, but I think in general terms, very few countries do entertainment like the United States. Firstly, I mean, America produces so much entertainment. You could be talking about music, television, film.
Movies,
and in each of those, there's just such a vast array of output. Now, don't get me wrong, some of it's crap. But when they get it right, which historically has been often, you end up with The Wizard of Oz, you end up with Star Wars, you end up with the Marvel franchise, Quantum Leap. I could go on. Wrestling.
I mean, the Marvel franchise of this year, though, the last maybe year and a half, it's been bad. Like, what do you guys think? I just feel like Marvel after Endgame, I think there's just too much of it. Like, I think they're just trying to pump out too many movies, too many TV shows. I think they need to just do fewer but higher quality. Same thing with Star Wars. Although The Mandalorian is very good. I've not seen Andor, though.
You know, I thought about including this under entertainment, but it seems as though theme parks deserve their own entry. That was a pun on entering a theme park. Now, over the years, Britain has had its fair share of theme parks, from Alton Towers to Flamingo Land to the M25, but America just has more of them. And of course, I think everybody knows about Disneyland and Disney World and Universal Studios and all of that. But after moving here, I realised, much to my intense happiness, that theme parks aren't just reserved for Florida and California, but can actually be found in many states. I think the first one I went to was Kings Island, just outside of Cincinnati. And I also went to Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. And
I went to a Six Flags, I think it was in Washington. That was a lot of fun. I remember that.
Yes, that's a real place. And the strange thing is I didn't go on many of the roller coasters because I have this overwhelming feeling that we're going to crash. So you might be thinking, what do you even get out of theme parks? And to me, it's the atmosphere. It's the balloons. It's the movie scores that play throughout the entire place. It's the hot summer days. It's the interns dressed in a Yogi Bear costume. Come to think of it, that must be hell in July. But for the rest of us, it's great to meet Yogi and friends.
I remember hearing that, I think it was Brad Pitt, like way before he made it in the industry in Hollywood. I think he worked at Disneyland. He used to wear one of those big outfits. Might have been Yogi Bear. But yeah, crazy to think, that Brad Pitt had to do that at one point. But I guess, yeah, why not? Got to make money.
People who watch this channel regularly know that I absolutely love parks, partly for the opposite reason that I love theme parks, which now that I've said that out loud, I've just realised that theme parks are themselves parks. Anyway, the point is, it's the relative absence of people that makes them so enjoyable. This was even the case for me when I lived in Britain, where we have a boatload of parks, some of which have boats. But just like with theme parks, America has way more of them. And some of them are absolutely massive. There's one in Alaska that is larger than Northern Ireland and Wales miles combined. In fact, back in the day, I did a video about US national parks that absolutely dwarf their UK equivalents. I'll link to that at the end of this video. And there's sort of a hierarchy of parks here as well. You've got the sort of local municipal parks, you've got state parks, you've got national parks. Spoil for choice because the United States is made up of a very diverse terrain. So you've got the hot springs at Yellowstone National Park, you've got the tree-laden mountains of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, you've got the Grand Canyon and just 100 million other places.
Yeah, in terms of diversity of terrain, is the US probably number one in the world? Maybe China? Maybe the US, to be fair. I'm trying to think of any, like, mountains. You've got sand dunes, you've got snow, you've got intense heat. I'm trying to think of where else.
That is an exaggeration, but there's a lot of them. And of course, you could fly to these places, although not directly. You'd have to go to an airport. But really, let's be honest, does that beat a good old American road trip? I don't think so. I love the open road in the US, and you know, some of that comes from the movies. Again, it's just like with the diner. It feels like you're living the dream while also escaping the feds. And you just stick on Billy Joel or something cool, you wind down the window and you just hit the gas, man. Not the gas man, you hit the gas, man. It's amazing. And that open road, of course, really is open and long, with some highways spanning the entire country.
And some of the views, like I think there's a highway in Florida that's literally suspended on like a body of water. So like you look left, you look right, and it's just like water, like crystal blue. Must be amazing to drive across that one.
And you see things on these journeys that you don't see from the air, and you certainly wouldn't see in Britain. Like quirky roadside attractions, especially when you're on a historic route.
Oh, he's a Man United fan. Oh, Lawrence. No!
Or the terrain that I just spoke about. And taking road trips in Britain was never quite the same thing, because firstly, the country is nowhere near as big. And secondly, in the UK, you can get to most towns and cities by train, which is equally adventurous. But you can't really do that for the most part in America, because there isn't high-speed rail. That's an example of something it doesn't do too well. So I've learned to embrace one of the things that it does, and that's road trips. That is it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below some of the things that you...
Another fun video from Lawrence. I agree with all of those points. I think in terms of the diversity of the terrain, you guys are probably best in the world. Food options and variety, like I'd have to say, yeah. Like, although for me, my favorite type of food to eat is Thai food, I do think in America you could probably find excellent Thai food and excellent Italian food, you know, excellent African food. You could probably find anything you want. Yeah, like in terms of creation of media, like movies, music, you know, yeah, like there's definitely a lot of things you guys do well. Obviously, there's a lot of haters of America too. You know, there's a lot of people who just, you know, talk down about it a lot, but just ignore them, you know. They just probably hate you because they ain't you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.